Thanks very much. I really appreciate everyone being here today and for our extraordinarily distinguished lineup of speakers for taking time out of their schedule to be here today to help us celebrate the launch of this new energy center. I'm going to be very brief because you came here to hear them, not to hear me. Just a couple of words about the center and what we're going to endeavor to do. You're going to hear from Dan Yergin in a minute, but I think when the next Dan Yergin writes the next book on the history of energy, maybe decades from now, they're going to look back at this moment in time that we're in right now as a really transformational moment in our energy history. Vast new technologies are unlocking vast new hydrocarbon resources across North America and most likely soon elsewhere around the world. Clean energy technologies are making rapid advancements and costs are coming down. Climate change impacts are being felt with more frequency and severity. And Hurricane Sandy here in New York was a painful reminder of that for people who live here. All these changes are having profound economic, geopolitical, national security, and environmental impacts. And we're going to hear today from, as I said, a truly distinguished group of speakers about exactly what those impacts are. And it's really, energy policy needs to keep pace with how quickly the energy world is changing. It's really extraordinary to think about the kinds of energy policy choices that people have to think about today that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. Should the United States export energy? Not just natural gas, but crude oil too. How do we address the fact that infrastructure constraints are leading to huge price disconnects as a result of the need to change how we move energy around this country? How do we address the fact that massive amounts of oil are being moved by train in this country? The greatest innovation of the early 19th century is now how we're moving energy. How do we address the fact that North Dakota lights up at night as brightly as Chicago because all the natural gas that's coming to the surface with the liquids can't find a way to market because of infrastructure constraints? How should our posture toward the Middle East change if we import very little oil from the Middle East? How do we increase the resilience of our fuel system to deal with things like Hurricane Sandy so we don't go through that again? Again, the energy policy choices that we face in the coming years are going to be critical for determining whether we can realize the opportunities and address the challenges that are associated with how rapidly the energy landscape is changing. And ultimately, whether we can meet the defining challenge for the next generation, which is how to provide billions more people with affordable, reliable, secure sources of energy in a sustainable manner. And from my experience working in the White House for 4 years, I remember policy issues suddenly hit your desk and you're in the middle of a crisis or a chaos and you have far too little time, not as much as you'd like, to really understand them and to really do thoughtful, deep analysis to get on top of them. And so what would be really helpful would be able to look outside, elsewhere in the world, and say, who has already looked at this? Who's answered this question? Who's done really good analysis that I can trust, that helps me understand what's happening in the energy world? And too often there'll be an economic study funded by one industry association and another study funded by another that says precisely the opposite. And you're trying to figure out which one is better done and which one to believe. What we need more of is trusted, objective sources of analysis that can help policymakers understand how the energy world is changing, explain what it means, and explain what they should do about it, and what specific policy recommendations and changes they need to make. And that's the mission for the Center on Global Energy Policy here at Columbia, to provide cutting-edge research based on real-world experience and market insights that will help policymakers navigate the increasingly complex world of energy. And to do that, we're going to draw on the unique and extraordinary resources we have being here in New York City, the World Center for Energy Finance and Energy Markets and much of the energy industry. We're going to draw on Columbia's world-class faculty, Columbia's global energy centers in key energy countries like Brazil and China and the Middle East. I couldn't be more excited about this center's potential I couldn't be more honored to be part of this extraordinary faculty at Columbia, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be back in my hometown of New York. We're already off to a great start, as you heard, with a fantastic lineup of speakers and events that we've had. We, as you heard, have already brought in our inaugural fellow, David Sandalo, who held one of the most senior positions at the Department of Energy and will for another week or two. Earlier this week, we announced that Nobuo Tanaka, the former head of the International Energy Agency, will also be a non-resident fellow at the center and will be traveling here several times a year to do research and engage with students in the Columbia community. So we're off and running. We have an exciting lineup of future events that you'll hear about, including the next one, I think, in mid-May with a Korean partner and lots of people coming from that region to talk about the Pacific Rim impacts of the North American shale revolution. So I'm really excited. I want to turn things over now, but just thank a few people before I do that. First, I want to thank Lee Bollinger, John Coatsworth, the provost, Dean Lieberman, for providing me with this extraordinary opportunity and by honoring me, by letting me be part of the Columbia community. There are too many people to thank for making today possible, but let me just mention a couple. Jesse Gale, Joanne Crawford, Eileen Marque, John Marolo, Madeline Storms, Katie Cashin, Stephanie Mueller, Leslie Patterson, everyone who arrived early and is going to stay late to help put this all together. And then especially Jesse McCormick, who worked for me in the White House and was excited enough about this center's potential that he gave up his job at the White House to move here to New York to help start this center and for his tireless efforts to help realize the vision that we have for it. A few quick procedural announcements. There will be, during all the Q&A that people have up on stage, there'll be an opportunity for questions from the audience as well. If you'd like to submit a question, there are index cards in the programs that were on your seat. Please write your name as clearly as possible on the note card, along with your question and to whom the question is addressed, and then pass it to the people collecting them, and we'll give those to the moderator up here on stage. For those of you watching via live stream, we haven't forgotten you. You can also submit your questions to our Twitter account at Columbia U Energy. Please silence your cell phones to be courteous to those around you as well as to our speakers. So thank you again for coming. To set the stage for the conference, you really could not ask for a better leadoff speaker than Daniel Yergin. Daniel is widely recognized as the world's leading energy expert. More than once at the White House when we were dealing with a difficult or thorny energy issue, at some point someone would say, "What does Yergin think?" And wherever he was in the world, he would generously get on the phone and help make us a little bit smarter. He quite literally wrote the book on oil, winning the Pulitzer Prize for the book The Prize, which I just learned this morning. He received the Pulitzer Prize in this room, in Low Library, years ago. It's a book every student of energy has to read. Everyone in this room should read, not just for its insightful historical analysis, but for its extraordinary, outrageous, colorful cast of characters who make up the history of oil. And then recently he did it again with The Quest, telling the most coherent, compelling, insightful story about where we are and where we're going in our energy future. On a personal note, I've been extraordinarily lucky as someone trying to make my career in the energy space to have Dan as a mentor for many years. He's been endlessly generous with his very limited time, and I am very grateful for his friendship, for his advice, for his wisdom. I can't express enough how much I've benefited from it. Please join me in welcoming Dan Yergin.